Today on this episode, I'm going to show you how to take one of these and perfectly fit it to the front of one of these. So stay tuned. Welcome back, riders. Another gear episode today. It's been raining the past couple of days, although now the sun's coming out as the day's just about to be over. So it hasn't been any riding for me, but I just got a GoPro Hero 8, which is what is actually filming this right now. I got some really cool stuff coming up to show you with the GoPro Hero 8. Honestly, probably one of the best moto vlogging setups I've ever had to deal with. So we'll get to that one in another episode, but today I wanted to show you how to create a perfectly good GoPro flush mount base on this nice RF-1200 convex, concave, whatever you want to call it, chin. As we all know, the standard GoPro mounts won't stay flush on here, and because they don't stick completely flush, you risk having your camera completely fly off. They do sell customized bases on, I can't remember the name of the website, but there's a guy that does it, but they're like 38 bucks, you know, and I'm like, I don't really want to pay $38 for something that normally costs me like $2 or $3 on Amazon. So I did see a video from a gal named Canadian Moto Girl. I'll put a link to her channel. And she actually made a customized, or she took one of these stock mounts and actually customized it to fit the contours of the chin on the Shoei RF-1200 helmet. So that's what we're going to do today. I figured, you know what, I'll kind of follow her instructional steps. We'll see how easy it is. And, you know, maybe we'll end up with something pretty cool on this helmet. So anyway, let's get to it. All right, so let's talk about supplies first. What are we going to need to do this? Well, first of all, you're going to need your GoPro base, a GoPro base. What you're going to have to do is scrape off the double-face tape. And then what I did is I took some 200 grit sandpaper and I just roughed and scuffed up the bottom of it. And it helped take whatever remaining tape was on there off. But the other thing this is going to give us is something to adhere to when we talk about the next item in our project inventory list. And that is this JB Weld. So this is the JB Weld water weld. They also make a JB Weld plastic weld. You can use either one, but you need to make sure it's either the water weld or it is the plastic weld, or it is some sort of epoxy based putty that adheres to PVC plastic. If you use one that is meant for steel, it is not going to stick to this. It's going to end up coming off. This is going to become loose and it'll end up falling off. So you really want to make sure you get something that specifically says PVC plastic or other types of plastics. This is going to be really important. So you're going to need this stuff. The other thing you're going to need is you're going to need some blue painter's tape. The blue stuff is the best because it doesn't leave residue on whatever you stick it to. You can try using regular masking tape or something else, but I cannot guarantee that the glue that's on the back of the tape isn't going to adhere to your helmet even after you take the tape off. So just stick with the blue stuff. That works best. The next thing you're going to need some double face tape. So this is for when we complete this whole project. We're going to put some of this double face tape onto the back of the modified GoPro base, and that's going to help it adhere to our helmet. you're gonna need some 200 grit, 200, 320 grit sandpaper. And again, this is gonna be more for some finishing work, because what we're gonna do after we finish it is we're gonna paint it. I chose black to match just the high gloss black that the base actually is by default. So I'm gonna hit this, because this dries white and some of them dry gray, but I'm gonna hit this with a couple of coats of high gloss enamel just to make it look nice. And we're also gonna need some sanding grit, some, like 200 grit sandpaper to kind of clean this up, and we'll get into that a little bit later. So the first thing, oh, and the last thing, of course, you're gonna need is you're gonna need a Shoei RF-1200 helmet. So there may be other helmets, and frankly, you could apply this method to any helmet you have that essentially has this kind of contoured chin base right here. You could use the same method. You know, we're doing this for the RF-1200 though, so, but again, apply all these techniques to some other brand helmet, I'm sure it'll work exactly the same. So that's about it. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna tape up the helmet. We wanna make sure we cover all of this, because we're gonna be putting some of this, sticking some of this epoxy resin or epoxy putty to this helmet, and we wanna make sure that we do not get any of it onto the helmet, because it will not come off once we do. So we'll go ahead and get that taped up, and we'll be back shortly. Okay, so we got the front of the helmet taped up. You want to make sure, especially right in this area, right here, you want to make sure that you get all the little nooks and crannies kind of pressed down. If you have like a piece of plastic or something that you can do, definitely use plastic, don't use metal, because it will rip through the tape and it will scratch your helmet. But you want to make sure you put all of this down. And if you really look, this is essentially, I'm going to use the ridge line of the like the helmet molding, because I think I want mine to sit right alongside that, because I do use my air vent right there, and I definitely want my air vent to be able to get, I still want it to be able to go open and closed. It is open right now, so theoretically I could also go to the very bottom of it, but what we're going to do next is we're going to take some of that epoxy putty, and we're going to go ahead and mash it and stick it all in this area, just to get the contour and the shape of the chin of the helmet. And then we're gonna go ahead and put this guy in. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so we've got our putty. I would also highly recommend putting on some of these rubber gloves, because this stuff kind of smells nasty, and I don't know what toxicity it is or anything, but I would definitely recommend putting something on. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna cut some of this off, and I'm just gonna take probably about 1/3 of it, just slice right off, and then we'll put that aside. We'll roll this back up, and this stuff comes in a tube too, so it'll stay relatively dry. And because it's two compounds, you can see there's a compound in the middle and a compound on the white. It doesn't actually activate until you mash this stuff up. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. We're gonna knead the hell out of this stuff and mix the two chemicals together. And then we should have a fair amount of time, I would say about 25 minutes or so, before this stuff starts to set. And so yeah, let's just get going on this. Okay, so I think that's pretty good. Basically, you want just a nice uniform color. And again, if you're using the water-based one, or the one for water repairs, water weld, you're gonna have kind of this off-white color. If you're using a different kind of JB weld or a different kind of epoxy putty, this might need to be a different uniform color, like a gray or a black or something like that. It really depends. But anyway, once we have that, and again, be careful not to get any of this stuff on your helmet. Once you do that, next thing we want to do is we want to start kind of shaping this out and put this in an area. And I would say try and get a rough, even spread of where your mount's going to go. Now remember, it doesn't have to be super thick, because especially up at the top, because really all we're doing is we're just trying to make it more flat. So I would say once you get like a relatively flat surface, and again, you can kind of test this out on your existing mount here. Ooh, that's sticking already. All right, we're going for it. We're just gonna go ahead and push this down until it is fairly snug and secure. You want to make sure that it's good. All right, I'm going to take these gloves off, or at least one of them off, and do a little cleanup while we're here. Get to see if we can get some of this excess off. It's not a big deal if you get a little excess on, because you know this, once this stuff dries, you can actually sand it. The other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take a little tool in here, and I'm just going to kind of have it go up against the sides a little bit, so that it really adheres. You can do that down at the bottom, get it into the corners, and you know, anywhere you've basically sanded it, where it can adhere to, I would highly recommend maybe doing some of that. I'm just using a little tiny screwdriver. You could use virtually anything to do this. You just want to be able to kind of get a nice uniform coat all over it. You almost want to build like you're sticking this in wet cement. And we'll put a little more over here. And again, we're gonna, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect, because we are gonna sand all of this and make it look a lot nicer and a lot more pretty, and we'll clean it up. And actually it'll look, hopefully by the time we're done, if I have any skills like Canadian Moto Girl does, it'll look pretty good. Hers looked amazing. So we'll see how this one comes out. Okay, cool. So I think we got it up on the sides pretty well. I've got one clean hand. Make sure you have a clean hand and a dirty hand, because you do not want to get epoxy on anything, because you'll never get it off. And I think that looks pretty darn good, if I may say so. And now what I think I want to do is get some of this excess off. So to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and use some of the cardboard, whoops, from the JBL, or what is it? JB, sorry, JBL. I've got, I just got a new Cardo with the JBL. I went from the Senna to the Cardo. Probably do another video on that at some point. So I have JBL on the mind, because man, those little JBL speakers that come with the Cardo, those things are freaking awesome. All right, so as you can see, I'm just like trimming off some excess here that we're not going to need. And then the rest of it, and really I'm trimming it off because that's just going to make less sanding effort if I can get this off while it's still slightly wet. Then I'm not going to have to sand as much once this dries and cures. All right, make sure that's still snug. That looks pretty good. Okay, so this stuff sets in about 25 minutes and it cures in about an hour. I'm gonna let it sit for about an hour, and then we'll come back and we'll check it out. So we'll be back in an hour and it'll be the future when we return. All right, it's been about a little over 2 hours now. I let it cure for a little bit more. So now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to start peeling off the masking tape. We're just going to kind of get most of this off. What we're going to do now is pull this off, and as you can see, this has essentially come clean from the helmet itself. So all we have left is just some more masking tape to take off, and we have quite a nice, upside down, we have quite a nice little piece here. I don't know if you guys can see it. And again, we'll need some more cleanup. But we've got quite a nice little piece here that contours specifically to the chin on the Shoei RF-1200. So it's rough right now. We're definitely going to need to clean it up. And that's where the Dremel comes in. All right, so that looks pretty good. I think that's about all I'm gonna do on the Dremel. But as you can see, it's gotten a lot smaller, cleaned up a lot of the edges and so forth. This looks great. So I think the next thing to do is really just hit this with some sandpaper by hand. And I think what we'll do is maybe start with, we'll go straight to like the 320, just to kind of get a little bit of this excess off, some of the epoxy that ended up in places where we didn't really want it. But this will really give it kind of more of a smooth contour, and we want to make sure this is nice because we are going to be hitting this with some paint. All right, so it's the next day. As you can see, I hit this with some black spray paint, and it looks pretty good. I didn't paint the bottom because I don't know, I guess I'm just kind of worried that maybe whatever I stick to this might peel the paint off. You know, this double-faced tape might take the paint off, so we're gonna just go ahead and leave that as is. So the next thing I want to do is prep this area, and I've got this alcohol prep pad, and I'm just gonna kind of wipe this down, get any oils or anything like that off, and then we'll go ahead and stick on the double-faced tape. So let's do that. And we'll go ahead and put the tape on. Now, this tape is not quite as wide as I'd like. So I think what we're going to do is maybe hang this off a little bit, and then we'll give it a little cut with a blade. Et voila. So that looks pretty good. Just gonna rub it down, rub it in, make sure we get that on there. And I think the next thing to do, I do want to test to make sure that this still comes in. Okay, that works fine. So yeah, let's go ahead and stick it on the helmet. See what happens. Get out our RF-1200, and the contour is up towards the top. So we'll go ahead and take some of this top part off. Cool. All right. Now all we have to do is go ahead and stick it. So make sure we get this centered. And that isn't going anywhere. That is on there. Cool. So that's good. Can still open and close the vent. And of course, most importantly, we can slide on the camera. How about that? So that's pretty much it for today, guys. You know, if you got an RF-1200 or you got another helmet that has kind of a contoured chin and you're having trouble getting the GoPro mounts to stick to it, here's a potential solution for you. Again, I want to thank Canadian Moto Gal for, or Moto Girl for inspiring the video, and for my subscribers, I hope this is really helpful. And let me know in the comments if you give it a shot, if it works for you or it doesn't work for you and you want to do something different. But I think that looks pretty badass, and I'm looking forward to taking this out. Anyway, if you like this channel, hit subscribe, give me a like, give me a thumbs down, whatever you choose. Gonna be giving away that Tough Side fender delete for the Street Rod 750 when we hit 300 subscribers. We're getting close. We're at 270 right now, so really appreciate everybody jumping on and subscribing. And I'll see you next time. Bye.